tight ends we haven't really talked about.
Let's talk tight end. Let's talk tight end.
I mean, it's a solid group, I think. Top guys, Dalton Schultz, Hunter Henry, but there's contributors quite deep into this thing. Noah Fant, Gerald Everett, Mike Gesicki's in there as well. It's a solid group of tight ends, but no, Dalton Schultz is the one guy that you think might be able to come in there and like make a real game-changing impact to an offense.
We have the old headshot for Dalton Schultz here on our website, and it's throwing me off.
Yeah?
It's got the Dallas uniform on.
I see.
But Schultz had a nice year with Houston. Nick Caserio, they've done a nice job. They started to get more playmakers in there over the last couple of years, and Schultz was one of them. But the one thing we've said a lot that Caserio's been doing is shorter contracts. So now this doesn't feel great. I don't think if you're a Texans fan, like you got the 1 year out of Dalton Schultz, you'd love to have him back, but the price tag's gonna start going up here.
It is, yeah. It's a difficult balance, right? You have to weigh how much initial risk you want to take versus, well, what is the risk if he's good? What happens in 12 months' time? Because now the price tag shoots way up, and you're going to be much worse off than if you're giving him a longer-term deal right away. But that would have come with attached risk right up front.
Couple athletic tight ends. Noah Fant is at 53 on the board, and at 83 is Gerald Everett. I don't see Everett maybe as a fit for Jim Harbaugh, and they're going to probably want some power run blocking tight ends. But I think Everett can still be a movable playmaker type at tight end. So I think Noah Fant, Gerald Everett, couple athletic tight ends who will be available in free agency. All right, let's talk running backs. We've talked about Saquon Barkley a little bit.
Yep.
Potential franchise tag. He's at 29 on our board. At 30 is Josh Jacobs. Given Antonio Pierce and what he said during the season when he took over, we're a Josh Jacobs team, we're a Robert Spillane team on defense, right? Those were their key pieces. I'm assuming they're going to try to keep Josh Jacobs.
You would think
Vegas,
so. Yeah.
Here.
And, in terms of guys you might want to give at least a franchise tag to, he's young enough, right? Like there's some old running backs or older running backs. Jacobs is about to turn 26 years old. That's about as far as you're going to want to go before you give big money.
All right, and I want to talk Derrick Henry.
Yeah.
Derrick Henry, 29 years old, 29 and a half, according to PFF.com.
0.5.
Derrick Henry, man, is any team going to go in and say, we want that level of power and identity with Derrick Henry? The Dallas Cowboys keep getting paired with Derrick Henry, and of course Tony Pollard is also a free agent for the Cowboys. What teams tend to do at the end of the season, they say, when we look at last season, we were good at these things, but we were lacking in X, Y, and Z. And the Cowboys could easily say we were lacking in the power run game. And there's even some people in the media who think they missed Zeke last year. They were great offensively. Dak had his best season. They scored more points than ever, but they missed Zeke. Are they having that conversation in Dallas that a power running back is the key for them?
Maybe. I mean, to me, the most interesting thing about Derrick Henry is just overall the discussion about him this offseason. He's about to be 30. He's got an incredible amount of miles on the clock from a running back perspective. Forget just the NFL. Like, look at his college career, look at his high school career. That guy has been run into the ground in his football playing career. And yet, there's almost no sign of that. Like, he does not look, there's no visible evidence that Derrick Henry is declining. He still looks like Derrick Henry. It's just that for the last 2 years, he's been running behind literally the worst offensive line in the NFL. And we say all the time, we caution teams against, do not chase exceptions. Don't go looking for the unicorn, because most people are not the unicorn and you get yourself into trouble. Assume that the rules apply to every single player, and don't assume that you found the one exception. But Derrick Henry has already shown repeatedly in his NFL career that he is an exception to the rules, and that generally the rules don't apply to him. This idea of, late in the game with a weight of carries and they get better, it's almost always crap. But it isn't for Derrick Henry. It actually is a thing. The more you give him the ball late in the fourth quarter, he does get more potent and more effective and punishes defenses. So Derrick Henry, I think, has shown multiple times in his career that he is an exception to the usual rules of how running back dynamics in the NFL. When they decline, how much wear and tear is important, when you should start cutting off, giving the money, etc. So do you assume that he will be this time as well, and actually you can give him a 3-year contract at high money because he's Derrick Henry still.
In addition, though, do you have to build your offense around him? For everything that you said, this concept of getting better in the fourth quarter, and there was a game a couple years ago where I said Derrick Henry led the comeback against the Seattle Seahawks. They were down 2 or 3 scores, and the Titans didn't just start passing the ball like crazy. They started handing it off, and
Right.
Derrick Henry led a comeback in like a 36-30 game. That doesn't happen in the NFL.
I mean,
with running backs. Is that not a good fit for Dallas, who became such a pass-first team, and rightfully so, because that's their strength?
I don't think you need to build an offense around Derrick Henry, but I do think that there are offenses in the NFL for whom Derrick Henry is not a great fit because they are so pass-heavy. Like, Derrick Henry in Buffalo wouldn't make a ton of sense because they want to pass the ball first and foremost. And therefore, you're simply reducing the value of a guy like Derrick Henry, particularly when he's not, the weakness of his game has always been he's not a huge factor in the pass game.
There's something about just putting a bunch of freak shows on the field, though, man. There's something about Josh Allen and Derrick Henry are in the backfield. Like, when he was a free agent a couple years ago, I said the Ravens.
Right.
Because nobody's going to run the ball as much as the Ravens. And even though they can make running backs, have 4.5, 5 yards per carry, what if you added Derrick Henry to that mix?
The Ravens would be fascinating. Houston would be fascinating. Like any of these.
Their run game was very inconsistent last year.
And Devin Singletary is a good player, but he's not Derrick Henry. And PFF Bobby wants to run the ball, right?
Yeah.
It's an important part of what he believes in offense.
Connect it to the play action.
Exactly. So there are teams, I think, that Derrick Henry would be a fascinating fit, but what do you do with his price tag, his age, like the confidence, how long you think you're going to have him for? Like, it's a very, very interesting discussion because of what he's already shown in his career.
Philadelphia Eagles, potentially.
Yeah.
They don't invest at
Right.
running back, but again, I'm intrigued by I always like the idea of kind of doubling down on the run game. When you have a quarterback who can run and a dangerous running back, to me, it's all about just putting the defense in a bind and making it difficult on them. And when you have a running quarterback and a difficult running back to stop, puts the defense in a bind. So I think Derrick Henry, even in his 30s, because of everything you said, incredible durability, and just a different dynamic. Is he a better running back than Josh Jacobs or Saquon Barkley at this point? I don't know. I don't think so necessarily. But it's a dynamic that not a lot of teams have.
Yeah, absolutely.
And here's how tough it is to find. Like, A.J. Dillon is also a free agent from the Packers. Similar size as Derrick Henry. Couple times, during Dillon's career where it's like, he runs with some power and some speed, but he's not Derrick Henry. And he's never been as productive as Derrick Henry. Like, he is in unicorn land as far as the big running back, the big and speedy running back goes. So yeah, of all the running back free agency that I've ever seen, Derrick Henry is the intriguing one, I'd say.
He really is. I mean, remember there was one of those sort of running back tenets has always been there's a number at which once you get more carries than that in a season, the guy the next year or whatever falls off the cliff.
That was an old Aaron Schatz, Football Outsiders, and the number I believe was 383.
Okay, and Larry Johnson was one of those guys. Remember
he
the
had
Chiefs?
Like 420 something.
Yeah, the Chiefs had that one year where they absolutely ran Larry Johnson into the ground, and he put up like 1,900 yards. I think it was never the same guy again. Derrick Henry has been at or over that number multiple times in his NFL career. Derrick Henry in high school had almost 1,400 carries. Right? In college, he then added another 600. And in the NFL, he's had 2,200 touches. Like, that guy has been, his workload must be as high as basically any running back ever when you factor in all 3 levels of his career so far. And yet again, I mean, last year he looked like Derrick Henry. His grade is still outstanding. He still put up pretty crazy numbers given how bad the offensive line in front of him was. He had a PFF grade of 90. Derrick Henry is still Derrick Henry.